I want to tell you a little bit about Blythe Hill. She is the CEO and founder of Dress December Foundation, an anti-trafficking nonprofit organization that engages women and men in the fight to end modern-day slavery. Through their annual campaign, thousands of people across 6 counties commit to wearing dresses and bow ties for the month of December as a way to bring awareness and raise funding for anti-trafficking work. In 6 years, Dress December advocates have raised $7.5 million in the US. Wow, that's amazing. Dress December has received press attention from the likes of Forbes, Glamour, InStyle, Good Housekeeping, The Today Show, Relevant, and among others. In 2019, Blythe was named one of InStyle's 50th badass women, alongside powerhouse ladies like Michelle Obama, Christine Blasey Ford, Angela Davis, and Gayle King. I am so excited to hear from Hill because I took some time to get to know a little bit more of her story, and I'm excited for you ladies to also hear it. But I just love how she created just a movement and just chose to rise to her full potential and being able to impact other women. So please give a warm, warm welcome. Woo! Blythe, you're awesome.
Into my life, and the world never looks so bright. It's true.
I feel like they're keeping it on now. Like, what's she gonna do? Well, I am just thrilled to be here. I love Yellow Conference. This is one of my very favorite conferences, and so it's just such an excellent honor for me to get to share the stage with so many awesome speakers. And we have heard from some truly amazing people. We've heard a lot of amazing ideas, and hopefully you guys have had some good ideas of your own start to brew. But I want to take a minute and first talk about bad ideas. I have had a lot of bad ideas in my life. It started when I was a kid, and I convinced my sister that we could create this incredible underground fortress with just 2 shovels and some persistence. I want to paint a picture for you because this is a pretty epic vision. Believe it or not, I do graphic design for our company as well, but this I put together last minute because I was like, I want to put a picture together. So all we'd have to do is dig about 8 to 10 feet down and then 20 feet over, and then haul in some essentials like a couch, a TV, Sassy magazine, and a giant bag of warheads. And we would have this amazing lair. Lack of electricity aside, this idea was a no-go. We got about 18 inches down before we gave up. We didn't really account for worms or hard manual labor. A while later, I drew a halfway decent illustration of my childhood home, and I showed it to my dad. And my sweet dad, overly confident in his daughter's artistic ability, encouraged me to up my production. And I thought, at 13, he's right. I am really good at this. And so I turned my art into a business and planted myself in front of my neighbors' houses, drew their homes, and then boldly knocked on their doors to tell them how, for just $50, they could become a patron of the arts. That's when I learned that I really can't handle rejection very well. Later, when I was in college, I developed a love of knitting, as one does in college. And this resulted in hand-knit Christmas gifts for everyone in my life. One of my best friends, Shannon, is here, and she remembers getting a scarf that year, I'm sure. So that caused many blistered fingers. However, it also led me to a brilliant idea that I was convinced would lead me to start a business that would make me the next Sarah Blakely. Let me introduce you to the Neckit, a jacket for your neck. Oh, no, too far. It's stupid how excited I was about the Neckit, you guys. I was amped on this idea. So I knit a prototype. I'm pretty sure I wore it one time before I developed a rash, and quickly put the Neckit behind me. But the Neckit, a subpar pun that it might be, did give me a love affair with puns. And so my next business idea was a quilting business called Quilty as Charged. And this is when Etsy was first starting, and I thought, I can start an Etsy store. What, like it's hard? I had never sewn a quilt in my life, but I was like, I'll sell quilts. And so I eagerly went to Joann Fabric and picked out fabrics. I made a design and just dove into this first quilt. And I still have that first quilt sitting unfinished in a tub in my garage. So that idea didn't exactly take off either. I'm sorry, I searched for this font, and so it makes me laugh every time I see it. In 2009, one of my pun business ideas finally took off. And actually, I didn't really plan for it to be a business. It was just this good pun merged with something else I loved, fashion. I decided to create a style challenge where I'd wear dresses every day in the month of December. And I called it, you guessed it, Dressember. And actually, this idea initially, it was going to be a month of scarves in September because I have an embarrassing amount of silk scarves that my grandma left me. But it's way too hot in Southern California for scarves in September. It would have quickly become Sweatember. And not in a cute fitness inspo way, it just would have been really bad. So a month of dresses in December was my second idea. And let me back up a little bit. In 2009, I was a grad student. I was getting my master's in English, and I was buried in books and papers, and I had no time for my normal creative outlets like quilting and knitting. And so I thought, okay, well, I have to get dressed every day, so maybe that's my opportunity to add a little creativity to my life. And so I came up with the idea, first scarves, then dresses, in the month of December, called it Dressember, and just loved the pun and was like, okay, I have to do it because that is just such a good pun. So I did it. I wore a dress every day for a month. I dug up some pictures from that first year for you guys. And it was nothing I was planning on doing ever again. It was just this fun idea I had. But then the next year, some of my friends brought it up, and they wanted to do it with me. And I thought, okay, they must be bored as well. So I was like, sure, we'll do it again. And so in 2010, I did it again with them. As you can see, these were some prime years for tights. I had so many colors, textures, opacities, it was kind of nuts. Anyway, I thought that was it. I thought, okay, they did this, they're over it. But then what happened the third year is my friends' friends wanted to join in. And so in 2011, the third year, I noticed that women I didn't even know personally were wanting to join in on my silly style challenge. And I started to think, okay, maybe this isn't such a silly idea. People seem to like this. I also started creating a lot of GIFs. Could we advance to the next slide, please? Oh, there we go. I was worried they wouldn't work. Oh, yep. This is, okay, back then they were called GIFs. Does anyone remember that? But this was oh, I can play with photos. I don't know. And it's in here for no other reason than to fully humiliate myself, I think. Anyway, we can move past this one now. Anyway, so Dressember was growing, and I was so surprised by this. And I started to think, is there potential for this to be something more? You know, I love fashion. I think there's value in creativity and beauty, but I started to think, is there potential to add a layer of heart and a cause behind this? And my first thought for a long time was just no way. Like, there's no way, like, if I try to turn this into a fundraiser, who's gonna donate to, like, we're just getting dressed. You know, we're not running a marathon, we're not biking across the country. This is never gonna work. But then I noticed what the Movember campaign was doing, where men across the world were growing mustaches in the month of November and raising millions of dollars for prostate cancer research. And so I thought, if a bunch of men growing facial hair can raise millions of dollars, there's a chance that we can use Dressember to raise some money for a cause that I care about. And so in 2013, I aligned Dressember with anti-human trafficking. And some people ask me, why human trafficking? And it's an issue that I care deeply about. I know that I could have chosen any number of issues, but this is something I first learned about in 2005. I came across a news article about sex trafficking in India, and I read about millions of women and teenage girls being bought and sold on a daily basis. And I had no idea this was happening, and it just horrified me. It still horrifies me, but I felt this immediate sense of personal urgency to do something about it that I had never felt before. And for me, this issue is personal. I was about 4 years old the first time I was molested. And for years, I carried the weight of guilt and shame and wrestled with these huge questions about my worth and identity. Questions like, am I disposable? Do I even matter? Can someone love me? It took years, I would say decades. I mean, it took a long time to heal and forgive and move forward. And so, like I said, this is an issue that when I first learned about it, just struck such a deep chord in me and continues to. So naturally, when I was hearing about this issue, I looked to my own unique skills and talents for a way to engage and contribute to this fight. And that's where, over and over again, I kept hitting a wall, because my interests and talents didn't seem to line up. My skills didn't seem to line up with contributing and engaging in the fight in a significant way. I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a police officer, I'm not a social worker, and I'm someone who's interested in fashion and trend analysis, writing and puns. My free time is spent incubating ideas like the Naked. And so really, my skills, my interests started to feel shallow in the grand scheme of things. Also, I'm an introvert. And I don't know if you guys ever feel this way, but sometimes it seems like extroverts are going to be the ones to change the world. So for years, I just felt powerless. I thought, there's nothing that I can do about this. But then in 2013, everything changed. And it truly started with a pun. When Dressember was ramping up, I decided to align our movement with International Justice Mission, which, if you guys were here yesterday, you heard all about. They're awesome. They're the world's largest and leading anti-trafficking organization. They've rescued tens of thousands of people across the world. And I remember thinking, okay, we are gonna go big, we're gonna aim high, we're gonna try to raise $25,000, which felt like a huge amount of money, because it is a huge amount of money. And I thought, okay, this could totally flop. I could look really dumb doing this. Like, here's this girl who thinks she's gonna end modern day slavery by wearing a dress. But I felt like I have to try. You know, if I can help even one person, it is worth looking like a fool to 1,000 people. And so I set this big, scary goal. And then we hit my big, scary goal on day 3. And what started as a few girls wearing dresses for fun became this global community of over 1,200 women across 32 countries who collectively raised over $165,000. And since then, the Dressember movement has snowballed. We've had 6 campaigns, and in 6 years, we have raised $7.5 million to fund anti-trafficking work around the world. I always ask myself, like, do people know we're not running a marathon at the end of this? Like, we're just getting dressed. It keeps growing. But it is amazing. It has snowballed. We've added 11 partners across the world, across the US and the world, who we partner with to dismantle trafficking from every angle. And it's been amazing to see this community of incredible and fierce women of all ages across every continent except Antarctica, if you guys know anyone in Antarctica, really rally together for this issue. And what it has shown me is, you know, if I'm honest, when I was aligning Dressember with anti-trafficking, I was thinking, this is gonna be my way to engage in this issue. And what it ended up being is thousands of people's way to engage in the issue. And I just feel so humbled all the time, so honored that I get to lead this amazing community of freedom fighters. And what's also exciting is around 2015, I noticed a man using the Dressember hashtag. He posted a photo of himself wearing a tie and said that this was his way of participating in Dressember. And I loved it. Yeah, I reposted it, and then something amazing happened. More guys grabbed their ties and joined in. And so every year we have more and more men joining in, and our Dressember community has grown to include the very necessary presence of men. You know, human trafficking is not a women's issue. It is an issue that disproportionately affects women, but this is something that men are so involved in, both as perpetrators and as agents of demand. Sex tourism, pornography, there's just a number of ways that men and women both have a hand in this issue, in this injustice. And so it's so exciting to me to see men come alongside the Dressember community and join it, because like I said, it's going to take all of us if we're going to do anything to eradicate the issue. Dressember has been successful in large part because of its collaborative nature. You know, I've seen what happens when we start to draw connections between our interests and our passions and then invite others along on that journey. As often as possible, I try to visit our partner field offices, and a couple years ago, what this allows me to do, it allows me to do a program audit, but it also affords me the incredible privilege of meeting survivors and hearing their stories. And so a couple years ago, I got to visit IJM's office in the Dominican Republic in Santo Domingo, and I met a young woman named Miranda. And Miranda was this beautiful 17-year-old girl. She was quiet, but always had a smile on her face. She had these just bright, joyful eyes. I don't know how else to explain it. She had this lightness about her. And then later, I learned Miranda's story, and I had some trouble reconciling that that story belonged to that girl because the contrast was so huge. Miranda was orphaned as a child, and she has no memory of her parents. What she does remember is being passed from relative to relative as her family, her extended family, struggled to take care of her. She also has memories of collecting aluminum cans as a child in order to pay for food. When she was a teenager, a man in her community befriended her, and what started as a seemingly harmless, positive friendship quickly turned into an abusive relationship. This man began physically and sexually assaulting her, and after several months of this, he began to sell her to other men. Eventually, a police officer became suspicious when he saw this older man with a teenage girl in an area of Santo Domingo known for prostitution. And the police arrested him, and then they took Miranda into a government shelter. It was there that a 15-year-old Miranda learned she was pregnant. The police at that time still didn't really know what to do with a case like Miranda's, and so they contacted IJM for help. And IJM came alongside Miranda as a fierce advocate. They moved her to a private shelter for at-risk women. They provided her with top-notch aftercare therapy, and then they created a legal team for her to come alongside her. They were able to advocate for her to tell her testimony in front of a closed circuit camera, which is huge in a developing country, where you don't have to face your abuser as you're sharing your story. And her testimony, because she was so bold and so honest in sharing it, her testimony proved to be critical in ultimately convicting her trafficker. And it was actually IJM's first conviction in the Dominican Republic when they began. So, just incredible. And like I said, I had a hard time connecting that story of trauma and abandonment and abuse and exploitation belonged to this girl who I met, who was this sweet, quiet, joyful girl who made cheese puffs for us. They were really good. I love cheese. I had a really hard time connecting those things, and what I realized, and I continue to realize over and over when I meet survivors in that end of, in the end of their restoration journey, or when their journey has been allowed to continue and they're in the restorative process, is that because of this anti-trafficking work, the work of advocacy for victims and survivors, Miranda's story doesn't stop at her abuse. It doesn't hinge on her abuse. She's not defined by her trauma anymore. She's allowed to come out of it and process it, and then to see justice in her case is so huge. It is so huge in restoring dignity to a person, to have a country's legal system say, that was wrong, what happened to you was wrong, and he's going to be punished. I think it is human nature to look any huge injustice in the face and feel totally inadequate. To think, I don't have the money, the resources, the influence to do anything about this. I felt that way. I asked myself, what can I do about this? I've got to do something. And for years, I didn't have an answer. But I saw what I thought was this silly idea turn into a global community of people. It sparked this global army of people who together are creating real change. And I saw my idea outgrow me to the point that I had to run to keep up with the size of it. Ideas are really interesting. You probably have a lot of ideas, most of which you write off as silly or scary or bad. And as you've heard, I have a lot of bad ideas. But ideas are worth having just for ideas' sake. And sometimes ideas that seem silly at first turn out to be really good ideas. So today I want to challenge you to ask yourself, what are you interested in? What do you like to do? And what are you passionate about? Ask yourself, could there be a bridge between those things? Could you be the one to create it? I don't know what's in this room. Maybe you like cooking and you're passionate about immigration reform. You like building websites and you're passionate about foster care advocacy. You like basketball and you're passionate about ending homelessness. I don't know what you can do to bring those things together, but I know that I like fashion and puns, and I'm passionate about restoring dignity to women. And for years, I thought I had to choose between my unique interests and my passion for people. But it wasn't a matter of choice. You don't have to choose. For me, it was this collision of a silly idea with a little bit of courage that sparked a movement. The next thing I want to challenge you is to consider your disappointments in a new way. Unfortunately, to be alive is to experience pain. There are an endless number of ways that we can be hurt. To care about anything is to make yourself vulnerable. Illness, death, divorce, rejection. There are so many opportunities to be hurt in life. And perhaps just as significantly are the dozens or hundreds of tiny daily disappointments that sort of hit us from every angle. And what we often do is we subconsciously begin to connect the big disappointments and all the little ones to craft these narratives that we tell ourselves over and over in our head. Maybe yours is something like, no matter how hard I try, nothing I do is going to work. Or, if they knew this about me, they would leave. Or, the bottom is going to fall out eventually. I shared my abuse story with you to show, I guess, to draw this connection, to show how this thread of trauma and shame in my life has woven in me a heart that breaks for the girls in our world who feel invisible, who feel powerless against their exploiters, who are made to feel like they're only useful when they're performing. Shame, there's a lot of talk about shame these days, but shame, we know, is a powerful force. Maybe you've done things you're ashamed of, maybe things have been done to you. What I have experienced of shame is that when you begin to shine a light on it, which is so hard, it goes against everything in your being to do, but when you do begin to shine a light on it with people you trust, it starts to lose its power. For years, I hid my shame when it turned out to be the key to my calling. See, sometimes the things we think are a liability in our life can actually be an asset. Maybe something that happened to you or something you went through that was so painful can actually point you to your purpose. That's pretty heavy. Let's lighten it up. So when we think about our disappointments in a new way, it does allow us this opportunity to begin thinking outside the box. You know, sometimes we just want to think about the fun things and what we're interested in, what we're passionate about, and that's going to connect us to our purpose. But if you are willing to be vulnerable and to be real with yourself and then with others, you could find work that is incredibly meaningful. And so I just encourage you to take the time to sit with that and see what comes up. I also want to encourage you, it's possible that you need to get outside your bubble in order to see what breaks your heart. Maybe you need to travel across the world, maybe across your city. But do it and start to pay attention. Expose yourself to the injustices that millions of people face around us every day, near and far, and pay attention to how your heart breaks. And then stop and begin asking questions of the people that you feel compelled to help. Liz talked about this yesterday, having a posture of curiosity and learning. Because what we know now is, unfortunately, so much waste and harm has happened by well-intentioned people who simply did not ask what was actually wanted and needed. And I have kind of an example of this. Fortunately, no major harm or waste that I know of has come as a consequence of it. But when I first learned about trafficking, I had this idea that what survivors need most are trauma therapy and rescue and therapy. Those are the things I thought survivors need most. And it's not untrue. Those are vital things for a survivor. But just as importantly as a next step is economic opportunity. It is crucial. Often, a person falls victim to a trafficking scheme because they're in search of a job. In fact, traffickers know this, and it's the number one form of recruitment into trafficking across the world is a fake job opportunity. So they prey on economically vulnerable people. And so in order to prevent that and then also prevent re-entry of a survivor into trafficking is this necessary thing of providing dignified work at a fair wage. And so in 2015, Dressember began partnering with an ethical clothing company called Elegant Tees to produce a dress collection every fall, handmade by survivors of trafficking that are paid 3 times the average wage in Nepal. And I want to tell you a little bit about Nepal. I was able to visit last summer, and Nepal is interesting. It's this beautiful, vibrant culture, but it is impoverished. It's an impoverished nation, and it's a nation where culturally men are more valuable than women. I saw it as incredibly misogynistic. A son is worth more than a daughter, and so daughters, young girls, often just go missing. The trafficking route from Nepal into India is perhaps one of the largest trafficking routes in the world, with an estimated 12,000 women and girls who make their way from Nepal into India or sometimes farther into the Middle East every year. And so, like I said, I was able to visit Nepal last summer, and we made a video from that trip to kind of show the women behind our collection. And I want to share that video with you.
सम्हालिन्छ कहिले मन कहिले त्यसै अतालिन्छ सम्हालिन्छ कहिले मन कहिले त्यसै अतालिन्छ साँझ्न खोज्छु
Not many people realize the overlap between labor trafficking and the apparel industry. When you look at the way fashion works today in the United States and in the Western world, the cycles happen very fast. There are new clothes in the stores about every week, and they're very inexpensive. And if you stop and think about it, how is it possible for a t-shirt or a tank top to be $2? If it seems too good to be true, it's because it probably is, and someone else, a real person, is bearing the true cost of that purchase. We came to Nepal specifically to visit our partner Elegant Tees Sewing Center outside of Kathmandu. It's estimated that over 12,000 girls are trafficked from Nepal into India each year for the specific purpose of sexual exploitation. Elegant Tees has a sewing center in Kathmandu that employs survivors of sex trafficking as well as young girls who are or were at risk of falling into sex trafficking.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Gita. Happy birthday to you.
So they'll catch them at the border and then put them in a safe house, as well as rescue girls who have already made it across the border and are working in brothels. Inside the safe house, they offer trauma therapy as well as vocational training. And the girls who are trained in sewing are then offered the chance to work at Elegant Tees Sewing Center in Kathmandu. There's about 16 girls who currently work there. There's actually a waiting list of over 500 girls who want to work in the sewing center. So it's really amazing to know that through Dressember's annual dress collection, we are helping to fuel the demand for ethical fashion, and we are also helping create work for these girls and potentially creating enough work to open new positions there in the sewing center to help bring more of those girls off the waiting list and into the sewing center.
Every day is a new day, and I am a new creation, and I'm a beloved daughter. That is what I want them to know. Like, I don't know what I say, they are free from the cage, like a bird was in a cage and now she's free. So this is my tattoo. I say that we are free, and I can see the joy on their faces every day.
मोती बनी कलिलो मायामा निधारको त्यो रातो टीका छाप परी बसे यो दिलैमा
We've made it.
निधारको त्यो रातो टीका छाप परी बसे यो
Spoiler. Back. Okay, you guys are just gonna see. Oh my gosh. Okay. So we have made it our primary mission at Dressember to eradicate slavery in all forms across the world. We've made it our secondary mission to educate people on this huge overlap between labor trafficking and the apparel industry. And part of that is we want to stir demand for ethical fashion and fair trade apparel. And so that is the reason for our dress collection every year. And I want to share it with you guys. Do you want to see it now that you've already seen it? So this year's collection is 9 styles designed by 9 different incredible women. And we also have a collection, for the first time ever, we have an ethical tie collection as well for the men in your life. Yeah, so I just want to take a second and go through these. We have the Astoria Sinclair, designed by Arielle Astoria and her sister Michaela Sinclair. Yeah, she's amazing. And then the dress I'm wearing that I didn't even know was the dress of my dreams and was a crowd favorite at all our photo shoots is the Alex, designed by Alex Michael May. It's like a party in a dress. Then we have the Terry. Terry's here today, but Terry Murillo won our, and she's wearing her dress. She won our Dressember Design Challenge last December. There she is over there. And then we have the Jordan. This is the dress I designed. It's nursing friendly, but none of our models knew that. I was like, look under the flap. And I loved it. I was like, if you can design a nursing dress that no one knows is like people like, aside from breastfeeding mothers, that's a win. I named it after my husband, Jordan, who's here with our 3-month-old son, because he has had a huge part in Dressember's growth. As anyone behind anything knows, you need support. And so the next dress, could we advance to the next slide? Over there, that's what I'm doing wrong. The Esther, designed by photographer Esther Havens. Then we have the designed by actress Jennifer Morrison. The Elizabeth, designed by Trades of Hope, which is an ethical fair trade jewelry company, designed by, or the founder of Trades of Hope, Elizabeth Hoiskins. The Vera, designed by IJM's own Vera Leung. Yes, creative director. You guys heard from her yesterday. We love her. And finally, the Resilient, which was designed by a collective of survivors at one of our local partners here in Los Angeles. So what do you guys think? Did you see one you like? Yeah, I am really proud of this collection. I feel like it's our best collection yet. And this is where I want to ask you guys a favor. And hopefully it doesn't feel like a big favor. Hopefully it's like something you're like jazzed about on your own. But a big part of making this collection a success is getting people excited about it. And in order to get people excited about it, they have to know about it. And so what I would like to ask you guys is if you want to help be a part of getting women off that 500-person waiting list and into a dignified job at Elegant Tees Sewing Center, pull out your phones. There we go. pull out your phones and enter this tiny URL, and that's going to take you to a landing page on our website where you can just enter your email, and we will send you an exclusive discount for our collection when it comes out on September 6th, and we'll also send you a social media kit of photos and suggested captions, videos, things you can post to your stories or to your Instagram or Facebook or Snapchat or wherever else you are. I guess everyone's on TikTok these days, so I don't know if we have anything for that. All the youth is on TikTok. But I just humbly and gratefully ask for your help in promoting this collection, because while it is a really fun, stylish collection that you can feel great about buying, you are impacting real women when you do so and when you help spread the word. And so I thank you in advance for joining our hype team. I want to end by just challenging you to ask yourself or to consider the possibility that every decision you make is an opportunity to advocate for the good of other people. That the things you buy, the things you wear, the things you say, there are hundreds of tiny ways to advocate for the dignity of other people on a daily basis. I've seen what happens when thousands of men and women make this tiny choice to advocate for the dignity of people around the world. I've seen this community come together and create real, impactful change. And I want to take this opportunity to personally invite you to be part of our movement. We open registration October 1st, and I'd love to see your face under the December hashtag. Thank you, guys. So I guess we're going to take a couple questions. Oh, perfect.
Hi. You mentioned using your pain to create something inspiring, and you made a beautiful connection that way. And I feel like right now I'm just in a season of like being overwhelmed by my privilege. Just be like, oh, well, someone has gone through worse. So like, why should I share, what I've been through when like I've seen so much worse? Like, how do you get past that? Because like on a good day, I'm like, oh, no, like it's all good and it's all valid. Whereas like right now, I'm like, what do I have?
Yeah, I get that. You know what? Everything is relative. Like, don't discount your own experience just because you haven't had what you think is like a terrible traumatic experience that someone across the world has had. And what's interesting is someone who's gone through extreme trauma might still, like, they're gonna identify with parts of your story, like how your pain made you feel, that's universal. And when you begin to share some of your pain or when you're vulnerable in different ways, people are going to identify with that. It may or may not be the abuse survivor, but it's going to be someone else in this room, So, yeah, I think just kick that self-doubt in the butt and then worry about, like, I think that's fear, it's fear to be vulnerable. And so if you can just press through that slowly, and again, maybe don't start with an Instagram caption, start with like your closest, dearest friend and a conversation. And then I'm also a big advocate for counseling when that's, well, not even like when it's necessary, it's always necessary in my opinion, like life is hard. So yeah, I hope that's encouraging. Yeah. Any other questions?
Sorry, over here. Hi. So it's kind of just a fun question because I'm obsessed with yellow too, and I've noticed that obviously everything is yellow. Could you give us a little bit of a story behind why you chose yellow?
Oh gosh, I gotta think back to 2013. I don't know why. It's just such a bright, happy color, and it's been important to me. If I really think about it, it probably is because I always wanted to lead from a position of hope. That this is such a heavy, horrifying issue that some people, when you try talking to them about this issue, they just totally shut down and glaze over. And I understand it's really, really horrifying. So I wanted to sort of do this like incognito thing where we lead with fun and creativity and like, hey, just getting dressed, you can have an impact, and then that like sparks their curiosity. And so yellow to me is this like really hopeful color. It's light and it's fun. So I guess that's where it came from. Yeah. Any other questions? There's one there. Oh, hey, Lisa.
So I was just going to ask, what has been your biggest challenge, and how have you overcome it since you started in 2013?
Okay, my biggest challenge and how I overcame it. Gosh, so many things. Like, if I write a book, it could just be about the challenges. I have no background in nonprofit management, so that was a big learning curve for me. Forming and managing my board of directors was also like a big challenge because like whoever talks about a board, like a nonprofit board of directors, and how do you learn it? And I read so many books about it, but you kind of just have to talk to people, and then everyone does things kind of differently. And so there were a lot of growing pains in that. I think as a way to maybe universalize it, one thing I experienced, and I heard this at the time, is common, is sometimes the people you start with end up, like at some point, they either leave or you feel abandoned. Like the people you start with 5 years in are not usually there anymore. And that was really hard. It was really hard to grieve that, and it was just a hard experience to go through. So I don't know if anyone can relate to that. I hope it doesn't happen to you, but it was my experience, and what I heard is it's normal because you start with this one vision, and then as the vision actualizes, everyone has different ideas of where it should go from there. So that was probably the hardest thing.
So I'm really curious about your transition from starting with yourself, and then you grew your community to your friends, and then you started realizing that other people were interested in growing and joining your Dressember, I guess. I was wondering, how did you start interacting with that community once you realized that other people were interested in joining you, and how you kind of went from it being a friend thing to being a community thing, and how you grew with that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, back in like 2009, 10, that was like social media wasn't really, like I didn't have Instagram until 2011. So in the early years, I had a blog, which I had no way of really monitoring who was looking at. But I started posting my photos on my blog just as a, like, I'm doing this thing and this is to hold me accountable. Like, I'm gonna post it every day. And then I made a Flickr account. Do you guys remember Flickr? I was like, okay, maybe we can gather everyone here and I can get an idea of how many people are doing this. But then when Instagram came about, and I, like in 2013, when I turned it into a campaign, I like took all the social media handles, built a website, and that's when I started to see like, oh my gosh, like people are really like into this and really joining in. But I really had no way of measuring it until we were having people register and like follow, I guess. Yeah.
Hi, I love that you guys crowdsourced. It's amazing that you guys have raised so much money. I'm obviously here with I Fund Women, which is a crowdsourcing platform. And one of the things that our entrepreneurs are always asking about is how do you make the ask? So I would love to know what tips you have that we can share with our community on how to go about making that ask.
Yeah. It's hard. I'm not a salesperson. I actually accidentally took a sales role once and I was in it for 8 weeks and was like, this is bad. Just crying every morning bad. I was like, I'm terrible at my job. I hate feeling this way. So it's kind of hilarious that I'm in fundraising because it's like the sales of the nonprofit world. But I think when you really believe in what you're doing, when you believe in the impact you're having, and you just talk about why you care about it and then what those dollars end up doing, I think that's a big piece of the pie, is explaining the impact. I made this conscious decision to view it as an invitation where a person can choose to be involved in this incredible opportunity to literally change people's lives, or they can choose not to, and that's their choice. So I think make the bold ask, and then let it go. Like truly let go of any expectation of like they have to say yes or they're gonna say yes. Like make the ask and then let them say what they're gonna say, and then truly receive whatever they're gonna say and thank them. Like, well, like I totally understand. Like I keep it, kind of light after that. Like I get it, and love to keep sharing our work with you over time if you want to continue seeing it. And yeah, so I think just framing it differently as an invitation can help a lot. Language is really powerful.
Blythe, I actually have a question. I'm over here.
Oh,
hi.
Hey, Kim.
Hi. So I know that you probably have a lot of great women in this room who are totally ready for December and want it to come sooner.
Please.
But as people are a part of the campaign and they're wearing dresses every day, and even if it's like not normal for them to do so, people might not ask, do you have any kind of like pins or like collateral or things that will inspire somebody to ask questions? So then we have an explanation, we have a reason to say, this is why I'm doing this, and I think it's a powerful tool. Do you have something like that on your website?
We have a button that literally says, ask me about my dress. We also started making one that says, ask me about my tie. Because yeah, if you live in anywhere like warm, like LA, I mean, it's not warm, it's like 60, It's a balmy 60. Anyway, if you wear a dress in December in LA, like people aren't really gonna notice. So that's why, a lot of people ask for those buttons, and so we sell those on our website. Great question. And then if you're in somewhere colder, there are some great loopholes. You can wear pants under your dress. We are not about freezing. You don't have to wear a dress to bed. You don't have to work out in a dress unless you want to. There's some great hashtag you can do anything in a dress photos. You don't have to do manual labor in a dress. If your job requires that you wear pants, then wear pants, and then in your free time wear a dress. So anyway, all those like normal obstacles that really are just fear. You have no excuse. All right, thank you guys so much.